Hello and welcome back to the Enough Mom podcast. I'm Jennifer Bryant, and today we are on episode 104, The Calling of Motherhood. Calling is the third pillar in our framework for Enough Mom. First is courage. We need to find the courage. Second is confidence, courage to be confident. And third is calling, finding courage to be confident in our calling. So all of this together is really the dream that I'm bringing to Enough Mom in helping women to understand that, mama, your voice matters, your thoughts matter, how you impact your family matters. And I've talked to so many women who feel helpless within their own home. And this should not be. So we need to get moms back to thinking clearly and thinking rightly about themselves. I want you to have a healthy outlook on yourself and to be able to trust yourself more, to be a confident decision maker, to know when no needs to be a no for either kids or relatives or whatever tricky situations you face in communication. Maybe there is some emotional immaturity happening within your family or within communication lines where things just become unclear and you're asking yourself, gosh, am I the problem? Courage, confidence, and calling all come together because this last step of calling has so much more to do with the position you are naturally in as a mom, okay? If you are a mother, if you have chosen to have kids either naturally, through adoption, through in vitro, however you have children, however you are called to take care of children means that you are called to motherhood. It's an obviously enormous responsibility. Nobody needs to remind us that it's an important responsibility. It's that because you've been called to it means that you can now equip yourself within it, within the boundaries of being a mom. It's when we tend to let go of some of those responsibilities or take them too lightly, or sometimes, we take them way too seriously and end up overly controlling our kids. So we don't want to get to that point. And we'll have many more episodes around this idea of either passive parenting or controlling parenting and where that comes from. Really, we want to get to the bottom of these health issues, these emotional health issues. Sometimes it's a spiritual health issue. But it all comes down to belief. What do I believe about myself? What do I believe that parenting should look like? What do I believe about the behavior of children? As I said before, I come from a background of child development and adolescent development. As a trained teacher in various systems, I can tell you that after watching many parents attempt to parent or attempt to have the best happen for their child, I can tell you that so much of our fear is projected onto our kids when we don't feel like we're doing enough as a parent. So this podcast is focused on mothers, and I want to help you with everything that I have seen thus far, and I have older teenage kids now. So what I can speak to is my experience as a parent, as well as my experience within many different educational systems. So let's get into it. Calling is the position you have been placed in to lead. If you were a mother, you were called to this special position of influence, and you can confidently use your strengths to lead your children according to their unique personality and learning styles. And this has a lot to do with understanding behavioral science around child development. You can discover how to harness your strengths in a positive way to inspire personal growth and lifelong learning. We learn forever, hopefully, as adults. I hope you don't think that we stop learning, because we don't. We have to constantly take in our world and filter circumstances through our values and through our worldview. If we're not stopping to realize what is happening in a moment of stress, what is happening in a moment where we feel like systems or school systems or maybe religious systems or family culture systems, when we don't stop to realize the pressures that we feel coming from these systems, then we're going to feel like a victim of our circumstances all the time. But I tell you what, you have a choice. You have a choice. You are an autonomous person, and you have choices about what you allow to influence your thoughts and your brain, and therefore what you allow to influence your children. See, this calling of motherhood is a calling to leadership. If you don't feel like a natural leader, maybe we need to rethink what leadership actually is and what it should look like. Maybe you picture a leader as being someone who's got a big personality and they're always yelling commands and they garner so much respect because they somehow know how to make people do what they want and da 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 da. If you have this very authoritative picture of what a leader is, I want to challenge you to question that. We've got images in our mind of our earliest authority figures. I think we can all pinpoint the types of, let's say, bosses or teachers or coaches that we've had in our lifetime. We can point to some of those personalities and say, well, I thought they were not a good coach because they didn't seem to really care about me. They only wanted me to do what they wanted to do, or they were only worried about their success, right? So as a leader, when we choose to be a leader as a parent, these are our own children. So it's going to be assumed that, okay, well, we love them. We want the best for them, right? But that doesn't mean that we necessarily know how to lead them well. And I want you to take that image of that coach or that teacher or whoever it is in your mind who is not a good leader. What were the qualities that they brought that were so off-putting? Usually it's an element of hyper-controlism. They need to be in charge all the time. They need the people to follow them. They need people to obey them or else they'll get angry, right? That is not loving leadership. That is not effective leadership, rather. I mean, we can accuse people of not being loving all day, but, good leaders don't have to necessarily hug on you and coddle you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that effective leadership encourages the people following them to be the best they can be, right? So now let's shift over to a different view of leadership. Who are the best leaders that you've ever experienced in your life? Coaches, teachers, bosses. Who are the best ones? Think about that for a minute. See, it's not hard to think of the difficult folks because we tend to have like a very negative, visceral reaction to bad leadership. But when we think about the folks who were really good at getting people to do what they needed them to do, it was usually brought with an air of encouragement. Am I right? Good leaders see us. They seem to care about their followers or their employees or their children. I would even go as far as to say good leaders get on the level of the people they're trying to lead. Now, this can look like a literal getting on your level. When I was trained in early childhood development, we were always trained as adults who were leading little children. Early childhood is 0 to 5 years. So more often than not, we were working with preschoolers, okay? It's very important to get on their level, to bend down and speak with them eye to eye, face to face. Because that positioning, that literal positioning suggests that, look, I'm not trying to control you by being taller and bigger than you and being intimidating. Intimidation is not good leadership. But to get on their level and say, look, I'm right here. I can see you. I am focused on you and your needs, whether you're crying, whether you're frustrated, whether you're upset. I am here and we are going to do this together. If you're watching on YouTube right now, I'm doing this very leveling motion with my hands. Like, we have to be on the same page in order to walk through this together. And that is such a cooperative, wonderful way to lead children, whether they're in preschool or whether they're in high school. I have to watch my posture with my teenagers. Sometimes they're on their way to being 16 and 17 right now. And as I'm trusting them to be their own people, they bring me problems, and it's not effective for me to stand in front of them and like kind of put my hands on my hips like, what are you talking about? What do you think's going to work? And I don't know. I don't think that's very, your posture matters when you're in front of almost adults. Okay. I try to sit down when I listen to them. First of all, put my phone down and away, and I sit and I listen to them on their level because they need me to see them as an equal, if not just in conversation. You know what I'm saying, parents, right? I know that I'm not their equal. I'm still their parent, but positionally, for the sake of conversation and communication, effective communication, we need to get on a level where they can see and sense that mutual respect. Okay. So your calling as a mother, mama, if you're listening and you're wondering, well, how I don't feel like a natural mother. My kids don't seem to listen to me when I try to give them directive, and I feel like I'm always tripping over something, emotionally, and I'm not doing this right because it just always ends in an argument or they're yelling back at me. Okay, we'll get into more of that later, and we'll talk about how power struggles develop. But I want you to understand that as you're called to mother young people, you are also called to look at ways that you can be a more effective leader in their life. And you can do it. This is one of the podcasts where you can get that information because I'm so passionate about helping mamas to understand how to show up better emotionally and mentally. When you feel mentally strong as a mom, as a woman, and you're approaching your children not from a place of control or demanding respect, their response to you will change tremendously when you approach them with the good leadership skills that we'll talk about in this episode and in the following episodes. I know that things can be frustrating when you feel like you've tried so many things to get the attention of your children, and when everything seems like a struggle. And then on top of that, maybe one or some of your children may have a diagnosis of some sort that makes it even more difficult. What I have observed in families who have children either with autism or ADHD or other learning disabilities is that when you're willing to seek out help for them, you're really seeking out help for yourself too. Because these professionals who specialize in helping children with diagnoses that are difficult, they're some of the most compassionate people I have ever experienced. And I'm thinking specifically of a family member who I might have on the show one day. We'll see if she's willing, but just walking with her through her child's diagnosis has been one of the most painful and beautiful things to watch. And that's what I'm asking of you today, Mama. Even if your child isn't going through something like that, or you are not, you still have the ability to reach out and choose to learn and to understand how to move forward in these difficult times of parenting. When you're just not sure what to do, nobody's modeled it for you, nobody's trained you how to do it. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, I thought I knew a lot just by being the oldest sibling of 4 siblings, but it turns out I had much to learn when I left the home, when I got married and started having my own children. There was a whole different learning curve to step into and accept. And I want you to know that you are strong enough. You are strong enough to step into the next season of motherhood, because this calling means that you get to use your strengths to lead your kids well, and you get to discover the areas where maybe you lack experience, or maybe you don't have a natural knack toward other things. I think personality tests are very helpful in helping us to discover what we're great at and what we're not so great at. Actually, I will link the 16 personalities test into our show notes at the end, so you can try that out and we can maybe move forward on where your strengths lie. I love it. So you are also strong enough to learn about your kids and what they need. Every child is different. Every child has different needs. I'm sure you saw that almost from the moment they're born, how different they are from each other. And as they grow, you may learn to see how different they are from you. And that's not fun sometimes. I've got to tell you honestly, it's not the funnest thing to butt heads with a child because they are different than you, but also sometimes you butt heads because you're really, really, really similar to each other. All of that takes patience and the initiative and the desire to learn about how to teach this child well. And you can do it. You can do it. You were called to be their mother, which means that you were called to help to figure out who they are. Okay, I'm going to say this because I recognize that I am now a contributing voice to all the noise that's out there in the world, right? You choose who you want to listen to, right? You choose the podcast, you choose the experts that you want to lean into. I recognize that there's a lot of information coming at you. But if the information you're consuming does not necessarily line up with your specific child's needs, then it's just noise. Do your best to align yourself with people who share your values, share where you want to be as a parent, and also with the specific kids you're dealing with. You may have a very, very gifted child, let's say. You may have a child who struggles a lot with academics. Some children struggle with social cues and relationships. Not all of the information is going to match exactly where your child is, but once you pick up on something or once you hear a similar testimony from another parent that really, really sounds a lot like your child, then go in that direction. Your calling doesn't mean find out everything you can on parenting that there ever was ever. There is something called the curse of knowledge, and I'm afraid that I have it sometimes because sometimes I feel like I know too much. It's like sometimes we need to just stop the learning and go, okay, who is my child though? Let me actually spend time with them and figure out what they need from me, because most often they just need time and attention from you. But if you're busying yourself doing all these other quote unquote good mom things and you're not actually spending time with your child, then you're not walking in the calling for your children. I hope that makes sense, because there is a thing as too much learning. But if you come to the learning table, you come to the curiosity table already knowing your kids because you spend good time with them, then great. Let's move on from there. Please do not put outside expectations onto your children before you actually get to know your children. Please start with just spending time with them. I want you to be able to navigate seasons of motherhood with grace. I want you to stay curious. Stay curious. Be that forever learner. Be that forever learner. Before we continue, a quick heart-to-heart. If Enough Mom is encouraging you, would you take a moment to subscribe and share this episode with a friend who needs to hear it? We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else you listen. Hit the subscribe button and check us out for more interesting episodes. It takes so much time and equipment to make this happen, and I would be honored if you decided to support Enough Mom through Ko-Fi. Even a small $5 a month contribution helps tremendously. You'd basically be buying me a coffee to keep this show running. Thank you so much for being here. And remember, Mama, you are enough. Let's get back to our chat. A few years ago, I came upon this article written by a woman named Jennifer Phillips. It's called When Your Kids Won't Bow to Your Idols. I actually interviewed her on my first podcast, the Practical Family Podcast. If you want to take a listen to that, I'll put that in the show notes as well. She talks about some of the idols of motherhood, and it's these things that we tend to hold on to too tightly. And our response when our kids violate those particular idols becomes very disproportionate to what is actually going on. For example, if you value cleanliness and it is so frustrating to continue to have to clean up messes, well, then you're going to be super surprised by the toddler years, because toddlers are all about messes. And if you cannot stand to watch your child get spaghetti on their face because they're playing with their food, but they're experiencing their food, that is actually a good thing, because the textures and smells and just the experimentation that toddlers need to have around food is actually a good and healthy thing. There's always a limit to like how far you let them toss the thing across the room and you have to clean up tomato sauce now on the couch or whatever. You can give them spaces to be curious and be themselves. But if your idol is cleanliness all the time at all costs, and you never let your child get dirty, in fact, maybe you are feeding your toddler. In fact, maybe you continue to feed your toddler into preschool years, maybe even elementary years, I don't know, because you're so afraid of the mess. Well, what if making messes or not making messes is an idol for you, and you're not allowing your children to actually be themselves? See, control, when we feel like we need to have too much control as a mom, that control is more about you getting your way instead of allowing the child in front of you to grow and develop as they need to grow and develop. Sometimes success, whether your kids are athletic or not, or how academic they are, their aptitude in academics is not a reflection on you. Even though you may feel the huge weight and responsibility of helping them to get good grades, studies show that the more pressure is put on kids to achieve academically, the higher their mental stress level will become. And you do not want to be the creator of that, mama. Mama, they need you. Your kids need you to be a safe place for them. And sometimes we need to really, really question our own expectations. We need to look at that and say, why is this such an important thing for me? Am I actually encouraging them into excellence? Am I hoping that they achieve a level of success someday because that will mean something for me or for my family? Those are questions we need to ask ourselves as we move them forward. The last thing is reputation. How much of my angst has to do with how I'm seen as a parent? If you can ask yourself that, how much of my angst or how much of my anxiety is there in my daily life because I'm worried about what others think of my children? We do our children and our family and ourselves actually a huge disservice when we care way too much about what others think. This comparison thing, which we will go into in other episodes, comparison will not only completely steal our joy, as the popular quote says, but comparison will not allow you to walk in the calling that you were called to do, the mother you were called to be, and to raise the child who is in front of you. If we were sitting down together on my couch having coffee, this is usually the place where mamas take a deep breath and maybe a tear will come down, because inside, and I've been here too, I've been on the receiving end of encouragement from older mamas too. There's something inside of us that really longs to do well in this calling. But the more that we try to control the outcome, the more frustrated we may become. We can control our input. We can control how much love and care and support and how much we listen, spend time actually listening to our kids. We can control that. But often the outcome is not up to us. The more we can let go and relax and just accept our part in the life of our child, the more relaxed your children will be, the better they will respond to you, the safer they will feel with you, and the more they will trust you to lead them. You can be an excellent leader of your children, mama, when they know they're safe with you, when they know they can trust you, and when you allow them to have a voice into their own childhood experience. This has been episode 104 on the calling of motherhood. Thank you for listening to the Enough Mom podcast. I'm Jennifer Bryant, and I want the best for you, Mama. I want you to live in the beautiful calling you were given to raise these babies. If you have enjoyed these podcasts so far, please consider subscribing on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. And I look forward to our next conversation around finding the courage to be confident in your calling.